What? Well, how'd that get there? I'm so embarrassed. Ah, that's better. Now, let's talk about this watch. The Girard-Perregaux Laureato in 38mm. This one in a new sage green dial. This is the first Laureato that I spent time with, and I'm gonna tell you right away that there's a lot about this watch that I like, and there's a few things that I have some big issues with. You could say the same thing about any watch. You could even say the same thing about any person. Yes, even me. But I'm feeling kind of spicy in 2025. But first, what's a Laureato? The first watch that would be called a Laureato wasn't actually officially called that when it was launched in 1975. It was simply called the Girard-Perregaux chronometer, and it was, gasp, a quartz watch. The current Laureato is mechanical though, so you can unclutch your pearls. The name Laureato was a nickname given to the watch by Italian collectors. It means graduated or graduate, like the movie from 1967. Why was it nicknamed after The Graduate? Just one word. I don't know. But Girard-Perregaux then adopted the nickname, and it's been the Laureato ever since. Maybe you can already tell that the 70s Laureato was an attempt to modernize. Patek, Audemars Piguet, IWC, a lot of brands introduced steel luxury sports watches with integrated bracelets, as was the style of the time, and a lot of those watches became huge hits for those brands and helped a lot of them survive the quartz crisis by convincing buyers that steel was just as fancy as gold. Amazing how we fell for that. Anyway, like a bunch of those other watches, the Laureato still has a lot of appeal. In 2017, Girard-Perregaux introduced a 38mm Laureato, and just last year it added the sage green dial as one of the 38mm options. Yes, this dial is sage olive drab green color. It's really hard to capture it in video and photos. Maybe it's my camera, and maybe I just found an excuse to get a new camera. If for no other reason, I like this watch because it gives me a reason to shop for new photography gear. 38mm in diameter, a mere 10mm thick, and we can say that it's 44.5mm long across the wrist. The integrated bracelet tapers down to 16mm. It has 100 meters of water resistance. It uses the in-house Girard-Perregaux 3300 movement, and on the bracelet this watch lists for $14,900. There used to be a leather strap option for the 38mm Laureato watches, but now it looks like they're only available on bracelets, which honestly is really the only way you should wear this watch in my unsolicited opinion. Now, how is it on the wrist? Well, I expected it to feel larger. I wear watches all the way down to 36mm, and usually integrated bracelet watches feel larger than their diameter. That's the case because the bracelets are wider at the case than more traditionally shaped watches. But on my 7-inch wrist, which is 7 inches around and 7 inches in circumference, I find this small. I find it too small, in fact. It feels fine, it feels good, but stylistically, I'm not into it. I'm a little surprised by that. Again, I wear smaller watches all the time. I think it's a combination of the diameter and the 10mm thinness and kind of the dramatic taper of the bracelet. It all is just a little too small for me. So I enlisted the help of my wife, Dr. Mrs. Terrific. My special lady has a wrist that is 5.75 inches in size and around and in circumference, and that's about 150mm. She likes this size, and I think it looks pretty good. At times, I think it looks too big on her, and then from other angles, I think it looks kind of perfect. If anyone knows how to handle a large object, it's my wife. But I'd say if you've got a wrist between 6 and 7 inches, this 38mm size could be ideal for you. Ideal in size. Is it ideal in every other way? Let's see. The watch is finished well. The octagonal bezel has a circular brushing on top, and it slopes down, and it has polished edges on the sides and on the circular base of the bezel. There's also a small polished chamfer along the top of the case and what I guess we can call the lugs, but really most of your attention is probably going to this dial. Girard-Perregaux calls this texture Clou de Paris, but this is America, damn it. I'm going to call this hobnail. It's a hobnail dial. And this texture is one of the reasons it's so difficult to capture the sage green color. It just has so many reflected angles. The Apply Girard-Perregaux logo and the seconds hand are both gold in color, which I like. I think that's a good combination with this green dial, which again, I swear is green. And one small detail I appreciate is the date wheel font. It seems to match the font of the rest of the dial. Some lightly serifed font. If you know what this font is, let me know in the comments. I'm a typography guy, which is another strike against me. I was a bit surprised by the loom strength of this watch. In my experience, as a person who has had integrated bracelet luxury watches from other brands like Patek Philippe and Audemars Piguet, usually the loom feels like an afterthought, but here it's pretty good. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm not impressed exactly, but this is good. The movement inside is the in-house caliber 3300. That's what the word manufacturer means on this 18-karat pink gold rotor weight. That means that Girard-Perregaux made the movement. It's well finished in the traditional Swiss way with lots of hallmarks of old school Swiss watchmaking. Unfortunately, the power reserve is a bit old school too. It's about 46 hours, and the movement is not rated to any specific accuracy, which is not great. The movement is one of my issues with this watch. I expect more for $15,000. I suspect that Girard-Perregaux may be looking at other movements in similar watches from competition and thinking that this looks pretty good by comparison. Maybe Girard-Perregaux is thinking that $15,000 seems like a relative bargain for a watch like this, an integrated steel sports watch from an old school Swiss watchmaker. And maybe Girard-Perregaux is right, but I ain't feeling it. In 2017, the steel Laureato on a bracelet was $10,400. I realize that 8 years ago was a lifetime ago, but nothing about this watch has changed except there's a new dial color. What's changed is that some of the competition is now unobtainable, so now everything obtainable has moved up in price. That's how they get you. Now, I'm not saying I don't like this watch. This is a finely made watch from a storied watchmaker with a strong pedigree, no doubt. You'd be lucky to own a watch like this. But, and you know I love buts, what I'm saying is that for $15,000, there are a few things I'd need this to have. First, a movement with a longer power reserve and a chronometer certification of some kind. It doesn't have to be COSC, but it needs some kind of guaranteed rating. Second, even though this is a very light watch, there should be some kind of adjustment system in the clasp. Something that allows the wearer to shorten or lengthen the bracelet by just a few millimeters at any time. I eat a lot of salty food, I'm not going to stop, and I expect watchmakers to cater to me and my diet. And third, I think this should come with a rubber strap in addition to the bracelet. The bracelet looks right here, but I know from talking with potential buyers that people like options, especially on what is nominally a sports watch. With a rubber strap included, this could be a really great go anywhere, do anything watch. Because it is good and cool and historic, and I'm so close to loving it, it just needs a few little improvements, which again, going back to Dr. Mrs. Terrific, is exactly what she said about me when we were dating.